Welcome everyone. We're doing our weekly live Q&A, first one of the new year in 2026. Hope everyone's off to a great start. What I wanted to open with, and then you can post any questions you have in the comments, I'll get to them as they come up. What I wanted to open with is when we're setting our goals, our New Year's resolutions, a factor that needs to be kept in mind when you're setting your goals is your budget of time. What I mean by that is most people, when we're setting goals, especially in the health and fitness area, time is going to be a component, whether it be more time for exercise and working out, more time for prepping our own and cooking our own meals compared to grabbing them and eating out, more time for rest and sleep. Everything usually comes down to a component of we need more time. And what I mean by needing more time is if you already had the free time readily available for it, you'd probably already be doing it. So what we have to look at is your time budget. And a big factor of this is you have your goals and what is needed time-wise to achieve these goals. And then there are other actions, activities, hobbies, maybe just mindless downtime that we have to really analyze and decide what are we willing to exchange time for. So if, and the easiest question for that first is, what are you currently doing that's not going to serve those new goals that you have? So maybe it's too much time being sedentary after work. So you can choose some of that time and then give that time to being more active and exercising. And it's an easy exchange with that. Sometimes it can be a little more difficult. You know, if you're trying to add more time to your sleep routine, so maybe you're only getting 6 hours or less now, we're trying to add another hour or more of sleep. You have to decide, where is that going to come from? What am I going to diminish or give up or cut in the evening so I can get to bed at an earlier time? Or what am I going to do to allow me enough time to sleep in later in the mornings? And that is probably the biggest challenge that I see for people, is that budgeting of time. We set these goals, but we don't really look at what or how we're going to go about creating that time allowance available for us. So first thing to look at is, again, what am I currently doing that's not serving these new goals that I have? So that's kind of the first thing to look at, because that's going to be the easiest way to get you that new time. The next thing is going to be some of the harder things. You know, they're things that maybe they're not in opposition to what your new goals are, but they're still things that are taking a good chunk of your time commitment, either per week or per day. Sometimes it's a little different. You know, there may be things that you're currently doing on the weekend, either hobby, pastime, or action-wise, that you enjoy doing, but you're going to have to budget some of that time down so you can go to the grocery store to shop for foods to prep and make your own meals. Maybe some of your weekend time has to be committed to food prep and meal prep, so you have meals available to choose from over the week instead of making them on the weekdays where you're already crunched for time. So the time budget is really one of the biggest challenges that I see for people, where they struggle a lot, because we set these goals. You know, so if you look at preparing all my own meals, going to the gym, even just 2 or 3 days a week, you know, you're looking at trying to create and add in, let's say if you were eating out 4 days a week, if you're trying to eliminate that and go to the gym twice a week, you're looking at needing to provide a new 2 to 3 hours of time to commit to those things, both for your exercise at the gym. I mean, twice a week for 30 minutes, that's at least an hour. And then other time for meal prepping, you know, figuring out when you can do it, how you're going to do it. Those are big factors to barriers of success, I would say, for people. We set these goals, we know what we want to do, but you haven't really figured out where the time's going to come from. So we end up kind of beating our head against the wall saying, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But at the end of each week, when we reassess, this is like, well, I didn't feel that successful, but I don't know where I'm going to get the time from. So you've got the weekend. Look at your schedule, kind of figure out how you're spending your time, and start identifying where can I make time for these new elements of my goals so I can be successful with my pursuit this in the new year, because I've already got the time budget allowed for. And like I said, this can be things, first and foremost, any sort of actions, activities that you're doing that don't serve your greater goals for the year. And be mindful, look at how you're spending your time. Spending, an hour in the evening scrolling is an easy way to start budgeting some more time for other things, whether it's more time for bed, more time to prep your meal, or more time for that exercise. How much time you're spending watching TV is another factor that you can make adjustments and allowances in there. And then going forward, like I said, how you're spending your weekend, you may need to look at some time there to maybe do more meal prep, so you don't need as much time during the week for meal prep. But there's always an exchange. You can't just do more with the current time that you already have filled up. You have to decide, what are we going to reduce or exchange the time for in order to have these new outlets for our goals in pursuit for betterment of our health and wellness. So just a few things to think about, a few things to look at and discern. If you do find yourself struggling in that first week, I recommend really looking at this. If you need some help kind of guiding through it, feel free, reach out. I'm more than glad to have a conversation and start helping you identify key areas that you can be more successful with that time exchange. Otherwise, have a great week, and remember to stay persistent in your consistent pursuit of health.